start for Trice. That's Chase, and what a start for Cincinnati. And he has the football. Puts a move on. Bijan Robinson, he's got a hand. His first NFL touchdown. Gibbs out of the backfield right away. Oh, yeah, there's no question that he was grabbed. They got Gibbs one-on-one with Andrew Van Ginkel in space, and that was it.
And this is, again, it's man-to-man. It's one-on-one, and he's underneath. He loses his balance. Block Bowers is one of those guys that has a huge, and this is...
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Fatboyz Dynasty Podcast, coming at you live on the YouTube channel, presented by the Fantasy Holics. I'm Bo. That is Brant. This is going to be a little bit of a different deal here in the next coming weeks, Brant, because next week you won't have me to say I'm Bo. You'll be solo next week, and the week after I'm going to be solo. Brant and I are going to try something a little bit different over the next couple of weeks after this week. Get on here, do some one-on-one stuff. And, talk about some of our sleepers for this season. And so Brant and I are both elbows deep looking into sleepers that we like and getting prepared for our solo shows. And so this week we wanted to come at you with something, and it felt like what we needed to do was go with busts and breakouts coming at you the week before we start our solo sleeper episodes, Brant.
Yeah, I've been going at it with looking at some of these rookie sleepers, your later round draft picks for your dynasties, and it was really like all week I'm going, man, what can we cover in this? What can we cover together? What can we cover together? And you came out with it late today that we need to talk about some bust and breakouts to go along with it. We got one each just to rip off the Band-Aid, get it started. I'm sure we'll come back at it with another time.
Oh, we're going to have our hot takes for the season. We're going to have our My Guys episodes for the season. There'll be some more trade episodes before the season starts. There'll be lots of things as the season progresses, but we are into that dry spell a little bit. OTAs have just started. If you're like me and you're a degenerate, you're salivating over the fact that Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders both had passing touchdowns, very efficient drives in their goal line, whereas Kenny Pickett looked like a bum. Jackson Dart, 2 rushing touchdowns plus a passing touchdown in his work with the first team there in New York. So, it's that dry spell. It's that dry spell of the season. We're not, we're not hitting each other. We don't have full contact going on yet. So, trying to stay, somewhat active in this community definitely requires you to, be thinking a little bit. And again, I think this is that point in the season where, if you've already done your league draft, even more so if you haven't done it, that's also more opportunity. You can trade some of these draft picks in your rookie draft or rookies that maybe people are a little higher or lower on to go get some of these established players, or maybe you trade one of the busts Brant and I are going to talk about and are able to go get some either draft capital or some rookies to replace them. So it's definitely a point in the season where, there's no offseason with Dynasty. We say that on this cast all the time, and that rings true, especially today. But these are the times where you can either tinker too much or you can make that roster just right for a championship run in December.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You got to go out. You got to start looking at possibly getting handcuffs. Maybe your draft's coming up. You and me have talked about, maybe you're sitting there with the Najee and you're like, okay, I have to get a Hampton in this draft. How do I move up to go get Hampton? Maybe you trade one of these bust guys and your pick to move up. Maybe that's how. Maybe you went out and you got Najee when me and Finley were high on him prior to the draft when we both wanted him in every league. and then we got shot in the foot with that. And well, the draft's over, so hopefully our breakouts aren't going to get shot in the foot after we talk about them.
Yeah, and I definitely am more. I've got some passionate takes coming on today's show, regardless. But I'm definitely more passionate about my breakout. So if it's the same with you, Brant, I prefer we start with busts. If you're good with that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You go ahead. You go first. You always let me do the honor of going first. You go first this time.
Okay, so listen, this is going to be a controversial take. It feels like this one has the making for me, like my DJ Moore take a couple of years back, Brant, where I was just completely out, and it was like, yeah, maybe that was a little premature. I'm out on Breece Hall this year, Brant. I really am. I think there could be a changing of the guard in the New York Jets backfield. I'm very infatuated with Braylon Allen still. Isaiah Davis had some good times out of that backfield last year. If you could say that for anybody on that offense, because it was just kind of woeful last season. But Breece Hall last year, coming off of an RB4 finish in 2023, obviously was kind of destined for, a step back. And that is what we saw. I think 2 years ago, everybody was kind of hyped up about the New York Jets offense, and including the Fatboyz. We both were, with the addition of Aaron Rodgers, and it just didn't come to fruition the way we expected it to. Obviously, the injury on that first game of the season. And then last year, it was kind of like, okay, it's revitalized a little bit. Aaron Rodgers is coming back, and it just didn't work out in New York. And Breece Hall last year, Brant, finished his RB17. So, again, not the craziest fall off. I mean, he still was relevant, but that was over a 16-game season. It's not like you're talking he finished RB17 and missed 3 games, and there was opportunity for him to be way better. 17 kind of felt like that was where he was, right? Mm-hmm. For a lot of us in the fantasy community, if we had Breece Hall on our roster, he probably wasn't a luxury player. He was our RB1. And if Breece Hall was your RB1 last year, you were left holding the bag. You felt disappointed. Braylon Allen, one of the most explosive backs in last year's class out of the University of Wisconsin, was a player that a lot of people wanted to see go to Dallas or something, and he ends up behind Breeze. It really just wasn't a good deal. And here's the biggest problem too. And I know they shored this up a little bit by drafting an offensive lineman early there in the first. But last year, the Jets' offensive line was near the bottom of the pack, Brant. 23rd in rush game efficiency, which is not good. And last year, running backs were touched 0.78 yards after they touched the ball. So they're getting hit almost immediately after the handoff, which doesn't yield itself to a lot of fantasy relevancy. And here's the worst part, Brant. Do you respect the passing game more with Aaron Rodgers under center or with Justin Fields? Because I know which one I'm probably respecting the pass game a little bit more with, versus which one is going to vulture rushing work, Aaron Rodgers or Justin Fields, right? So there's a lot to be nervous about for Breece Hall this year. I think on top of the fact that, he's got the ACL injury already in his past, and it's just there's some things that cause you to be a little bit nervous about him with this offense. The touchdown equity really isn't there either, because the touchdown opportunity isn't there. And now you're talking about a guy in Justin Fields that he's going to take some of that goal line rushing upside. They're already talking about installing the tush push in New York with him. So I just think there's still a window to sell Breece Hall high, if that makes sense, Brant. And again, this could teeter, and I will stand on this. This could teeter to where people sell off on Breece Hall enough he could end up becoming a buy for me. But right now, at his current value and what I expect him to do next year, he's a sell. Breece Hall for any first-round draft pick, I'm taking that at this point, just because this running back class is so deep, and a lot of these guys are walking into opportunities that have less competition, I feel like, than Breece Hall does. And another one that I saw on Dynasty Daddy, that site we use for the trade database, Brant, was Joe Mixon in the 201 straight up. That one I'm taking all day long, twice on Sundays. Excuse me. Joe Mixon's a guy in Houston that doesn't have any, real competition, and you're adding the 201, which is still a very talented player. I'm just at the price point for Breece Hall right now, and what I expect his production to look like next year. I'm out. I think Breece Hall busts at his current value.
Okay, absolutely. He is going off as the 15th overall running back in drafts that are added up. So obviously are fading him this year, and it's definitely going to be. They're probably at. Honestly, that could be his ceiling.
Well, he was 17 last year, so that would not be great if you drafted him at 15.
Yeah. Allen is still back there. Isaiah Davis, you're talking about. Honestly, it's going to come out who runs the RPO better during training camp and everything else, and that's probably going to be the back that takes over. So my bust is actually getting drafted just above him. By just above him, I mean 4 spots at the number 11 running back. And that's Kyren Williams. I know. Let me just reach back here where we've been talking about it for the last year. Mm-hmm. Well, last year they added Blake Corum. This year in the 4th round, they added Hunter. They're in the backfield too in the 4th round. And they're showing that they don't want to give him this huge volume. Well, he finished as RB7 last year. He had 350 total touches. Volume is key in the NFL, and Cooper Kupp being gone doesn't spread the field as much. I know they do still have Puka Nacua. I think that they're going to lean a little bit more on the running game, and I think it's going to be almost a 3-headed monster back there. And you're drafting him as your RB1 at running back 11, and he has seen so many carries, so many touches over the last 2 years, and they've constantly gone out the last 2 years to try to add a little help there. Mm-hmm. Blake Corum coming off the forearm injury, getting a full training camp. I believe he was banged up at the beginning of training camp last year too. That kept him out of getting in the rotation. I think RB11 is honestly the highest point that you're probably going to have Kyren Williams possibly finish. And this guy is, I mean, like I said, he saw so many carries. He's finished as RB6 and RB7 the last 2 years. So it's there to get plenty of trade assets there and get plenty of help in rebuilding or adding a new player to replace him that maybe the waters aren't as murky there like they are in the Rams. So yeah, I think Kyren Williams is definitely a guy that I'm getting rid of, and I'm trying to avoid the best I can this year.
So I'm curious, Brant, and I'm not the biggest Kyren Williams lover out there. I'm going to preface it by saying that I agree with you that he is a sell. My question is, do you think it'd be more beneficial to sell him now or wait till the start of the season? And here's why. In 2023, Kyren Williams had the easiest strength of schedule for any running back in fantasy football. Mm-hmm. Last year, he had the hardest strength of schedule for any running back in fantasy football. This year, he bounces back towards the easiest schedule in fantasy football. Should you hold him and let him establish some more value? Because RB11 feels low for a guy who maybe comes out and hangs big points the first 2 or 3 weeks.
I mean, you can hold off on it, but then you're hoping no camp buzz comes out of them splitting first team work, because you know how that is when that camp buzz comes out. Oh, so-and-so took, 20 out of the 25 first team snaps, even if he is just taking a rest day. I mean, you're sitting there and you're waiting to just see if it's going to be, if there's going to be any rumors or anything else swirling. I think I try to get rid of him now and try to acquire some assets. I think I try to get rid of him quicker rather than later to see when, buzz starts coming out or anything else.
Okay, so let me just ask you, would you rather own Breece Hall this year or Kyren Williams?
I think I'm going to go with Kyren Williams just because there isn't the rushing quarterback there. But, I mean, that's a 50-50 toss-up. Either one of those, the bottom could fall out, and it could fall out quick. You could see Kyren come out the first week and hang 25 fantasy points, and then you're like, all right, I'm going to get one more week. And then all of a sudden that bottom just falls out. You start to see the 70, 20, 10, and then the following week it's 60, 20, 20. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, the volume's not there because he's not the most efficient back with the volume he does get.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to the breakouts, Brant. I'm going deep in my bag for this one. We talked a couple weeks ago on the episode or on the show that the Chicago Bears might be sniffing around at a running back potentially. And I've still read rumors, ranging from trying to trade for Kenneth Walker to Nick Chubb to J.K. Dobbins, all these different names getting thrown around. However, there is a guy on this roster, Brant, that I think at his current value is worth a buy all day long. I think he's a complete breakout candidate. This is Roschon Johnson. This is a guy that sat behind Bijan at the University of Texas. And I genuinely think this, Brant, if Bijan Robinson had not been a Texas Longhorn, I genuinely think Roschon Johnson would have been right in that conversation with Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan as that top running back in that class. But again, obviously being outshadowed, change of pace back. Draft stock wasn't there. Opportunity really hasn't been great for him up until I think coming into this year, you're really going to see it explode. This is a guy that, at best last season saw like 30% of snaps in a couple weeks. He had 6 touchdowns, Brant. He was inside the top 50 running backs in fantasy last year still, with minimal work. And here's the change that happened, right? Chicago Bears offensive line was like 29th last year. They're projected to be like a 11th overall team, I believe, offensive line wise. They went and revamped that offensive line big time. Here's the other big thing. Ben Johnson's in town, right? Coming from this system where, Knuckles Sonic and Tails was just so, or Sonic and Knuckles was just so effective, and David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. I think you're going to see a 1-2 punch in Chicago with Roschon Johnson being featured quite a bit. I think Roschon Johnson's talent's going to be on display. I think Roschon Johnson is a guy that if he gets an opportunity, folks in the fantasy world are going to be clamoring for. This is a guy that if I'm doing a startup dynasty draft, Brant, I don't care whether I get DeAndre Swift or not. I'm not leaving that draft without him. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to go reach real high and go grab him like the 3rd round. I'm not advocating for that. But I am not leaving my draft without him. Current value for him just feels insulting almost to a point, Brant. The 312 in this year's draft for Roschon Johnson, that's a price I'm willing to pay all day long. A 2026 second, again, that feels a little higher. But at the same time, when you talk about what I think the value could be for Roschon this year, I'm paying that. And the other one that I found really interesting, and I'm not sure how you would do what you would do on this one. I know which way I would lean. Is Roschon Johnson straight up for Najee Harris. And I'm taking the Roschon Johnson side of that just because of I haven't gotten to see the opportunity of Roschon Johnson. We've seen Najee Harris, and it's not sexy. I like Najee, but it's not sexy.
Yeah, I think I would probably take that Roschon. I'm going to take the younger grade there. And let's talk. I'm looking at the fantasy football calculator that takes a lot of mock drafts and everything in consideration. Roschon Johnson's the 65th back off the board in 12-team drafts. And then you go all the way up to 22 is where Knuckles is being drafted at, David Montgomery. So you could be talking about that flip-flop next year Montgomery's actually being drafted over Swift right now, which is kind of crazy in my mind. But you look at that, and you could be talking about that being switched next year. Even if they do trade for a back, I don't think we've already seen that Ben Johnson isn't the biggest fan of Swift. So you could see Roschon Johnson becoming the number 1 back there and seeing a lot more work. So yeah, I definitely think Roschon Johnson has a great value this year and has a great chance to take off and really put on full display.
Last thing I'm going to add, you brought up the fact that he's being drafted as like the 65th overall running back. He's 12 spots better than that on his worst year so far, and that's with getting minimal work. So, again, this is a guy that I think should be rostered if you have the space. So.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm going to reach down in my bag just a little bit, not quite as far. Yours was 65. Mine is 45 on that site there, and that is Jalen Wright of the Miami Dolphins. A-Chain, huge injury history. He's fragile. I love A-Chain. I love what he brings to the table. Exciting, but can't stay healthy. Mm-hmm. And we already know Miami wants to use the running back by committee approach with these guys. Well, Mostert's gone. Wilson's gone. They didn't add anybody to note in the draft that I can remember.
You take it back. Ollie Gordon.
Okay, they didn't add anybody in the draft that's going to matter.
Blasphemy.
Yeah, okay. Last time it took how many years for the guy that you loved out of Oklahoma State to take off?
Chuba Hubbard's a buy, baby. He's a buy.
Yeah, it took him so many years. But still, I don't see Ollie Gordon really cracking that. He's not fast enough to be in that lineup anyways. Let's be honest. But you're talking about a guy, A-Chain, 188 pounds, fragile. Jalen Wright is 5'10", 210 pounds. This is a guy that could end up easily taking over the number one role if he gets the opportunity. He's got great size to be a 3-down back that I just talked about. We did see minimal work from him last year, but like I said, Mostert, Wilson, they had A-Chain, they had all those guys in there that they were trying to work in at some point. I think Jalen Wright is going to get his opportunity, and I think you can snag him late in your drafts, and he's still young. He's got blazing speed with that offense. Now their line will need some help, but I still think this guy is going to be fast enough to get out in the open space on the outside and really take off. This is a guy that I could see really taking off this year.
Yeah, solely, if nothing else, Brant, just based on the simple fact that Raheem Mostert's out of town. Even if A-Chain doesn't get hurt and it's a running back by committee, that means next man up, Jalen Wright's going to get some work, or at least more work than he did last year. So I think that's a positive take. I like that one. I don't like the statement that they didn't add anybody of relevancy, but I do like the fact that you have Jalen Wright as a breakout. I do think he does break out this year, at least comparatively to last year. So I agree with that one as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is going to be, you know how this offense likes to run fast, quick, and in a hurry. And I think this is going to be a guy that's going to feed right into this. And being the size he is, even when they are in that hurry up, he's going to be able to handle it being that big.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree. All right. So that kind of wraps it up for us this week. Again, I know this is kind of a shorter episode, not as deep as Brant and I usually go on our busts and breakouts. There will be another one as we get closer to the season. We just wanted to put one out there before we came at you with our sleepers next week or the next 2 weeks when Brant's here by himself and then me the following week. So just wanted to hit you with kind of where we're at this point in the season.
Absolutely. It's always fun to join you, join up. And like we said, it's kind of the dead time, kind of the slow time. But we want to make sure we get those out there for you. I think that wraps it up for us. So as always, stay hungry.
Stay fat, my friends.